it happened, it was like, okay, there's really no limit to what we can now achieve. So I think fundamentally it's like getting to that point. It's like whether you could be here playing local venues in Winnipeg and you could be tapping into that and suddenly ready to go and take on the world, even if it looks like you're not remotely ready for it, like in terms of the setup you've got and the fan base you've got. So I think in the end, like, it's about the true quality of the music and whether you as a sort of person are kind of ready to go and have got, an authentic thing to yourself and a real true individual artist. And then there's a world of people out there in the industry that can make the rest of it happen. Obviously judging whether you're there is this whole mysterious thing and doesn't necessarily make this an easy answer, but I guess it just does mean that from any position it's kind of there's potential to go and to be export ready and to go and take on the world if you've got the goods. You don't need to kind of have more than 100 fans on Facebook, really, as far as I'm concerned. I could watch a band tonight and be like, this band's going to take on the world, and I think we could do it in a year.
Yeah, it sounds a lot. It sounds a lot like it's like any relationship, right? You just have to be ready for it at that time, and there has to be a connection and sort of like fireworks and a general goal for both parties in order for you to work together. Or
I just think there's a certain undeniable element to some artists where you're like, people, like someone's gonna jump on board because they're brilliant, and you see that the way they're playing a show and everyone in the crowd's just reacting to it, and everyone's going, like, we could go to a show tonight and all of us would be like, holy shit, did you see that band? And I might be like, that was the most incredible thing I've seen in years. And I'd probably be like, hey, Clemence, should we put a show on in London? And it could just start happening. But it's because they were like remarkable, and like that's the thing that, and if they're remarkable, someone's going to jump on it pretty quickly.
Right. So what would be your advice then? I think there's a lot of artists that they do showcases and they invite a lot of industry people. Do you have any advice for those artists in terms of that actual showcase or performing in front of industry folks? Other than being authentic, but what are some of the things that they really need to focus on before, I'd say, like, even inviting people to come see them?
Yeah, I think that every band artist should use their local scene to kind of as a training ground and just be out there doing it, working hard, rehearsing, playing, and taking those moments to step out of themselves and go like, what's happening here? And you'll see it if it's happening. You're like, your friends won't be turning up because they want to support you as a friend. They'll be like, man, I'm so excited about the show. You can see it just in your own community if people are like, if you're blowing people away. And the same act that might not do it 2 years ago have worked hard and maybe got to that point. So I think I love local scenes for for developing and getting to the point where you're ready. And it's about kind of keeping your eyes open amongst your community and seeing that people are going like, wow, like, people are really excited. They're starting to buy tickets to our show and something's happening around us. And if it's not, then there's work to do, I think, because I don't think there's any city in the world, that thing where people are like, I think we've got a sound that's probably a bit better in Germany. I don't believe in that. Like, if you're incredible in whatever town you are in the world, unless no one understands English and you're an English-speaking band or vice versa, maybe that's an exception. But, like, if you're incredible, you're going to be seeing this reaction and you'll be starting to go like, hey, this is something. People are, like, wanting to come to our shows. And that's when you feel like you've created something in your own little ecosystem, then you're ready to go to kind of present to other people.
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of playing shows in your hometown, just getting to know the people in your community that, book venues, or like that the writers in hometown. I feel like that's really helpful, where it's like, cool, you know, you're playing your own show or you're playing with your friends' bands, but when they need an opener for a bigger act that's coming through and they can say, oh, I saw this band, you know, last month and I thought they were really great, they might think about throwing you on the bill if they need an opener. So I think starting, you know, to play shows and get better and better live, and then you can get these opening acts and then start developing and cultivating those relationships with those, you know, larger acts that are coming through town. I feel like that's really helpful. And, you know, maybe they have an agent that, you know, if you have a relationship with them, they might say, oh, we're coming through again, you know, this is the band that we want. So I think, you know, something that everyone is kind of saying is also like, you never kind of know where people are going to end up, and make sure you're always kind and you're always, you know, taking the time to interact with people. I feel like that's really helpful. And also I think, you know, in the editorial side, like, you know, getting to know like blogs or like, you know, writers in your own town or in the like neighboring cities, I feel like that's really helpful. And just inviting them to shows, I think, especially when artists are starting out, like, you know, writers almost kind of are happier to hear from bands rather than publicists, because they know we're going to annoy them about many other things. So it's like, oh, I'm friends with this person at this publication, like, I got this. Like, I think that that's great, you know, and then you can in turn bring that to a publicist, like, hey, this person has written about us, you know, 5 times in the last year. And I think that's really helpful.
And to circle back on your question from a more practical point of view, I guess, before you start inviting people, I think you really want to be sure that your show is really tight, and that I mean, if you're in a band and you're all playing together, that it's you're ready to. I mean, that it's really tight. There's no other way to say it, I guess. I mean, again, it's about testing with your community of friends and some people, some venue bookers that you know personally or something, and asking them, so where do you think I am, if you don't feel it yourself? But so there's that, and that obviously comes with playing a lot and practicing a lot, and just there's not enough playing that you can do basically before you actually get to that stage, I think, because you can be an amazing player, musician, but getting to that stage where everything just flows perfectly on stage, it's just practice forever. And then the other thing is think about the set list as well and how you build that, because that's actually quite important, depending on how long your set is and what you can actually show people. So try to, I mean, again, it's quite an organic feeling, I guess, that you get when you can see how people react. I mean, try to not have like down moments or you know, or they need to be like placed in the right position. So think about the set list quite hard as well, and not just like play any song after another.
Yes, it's very interesting. So just set list thing, perhaps when you're a young band, you should have somebody who has an outside view on your performance, and always ask those friends what's your favorite song, what's the best to do. So I remember when I started working with this Canadian band, the Lyrics from Winnipeg. We brought them over to Europe, and from the beginning on, we had to tell them, okay, this is your set list. And they said, oh no, I don't like the song anymore. I said, hey, but we like this song. This is a song Europeans like, you know. And so that still is like, we kick out the new songs sometimes because we need these old songs.
Right, yeah, I guess you can, it's nice now with things like Spotify where there's analytics and you can see like which countries like which songs, and really sort of catering to your audience is super important for that. I actually wanted, Mark, you have a publishing deal now. So there are more ways to sort of exploit yourself as an artist, and there are a lot of people who are interested in that sort of songwriting world, and it seems like a little bit foreign, especially for the performing artist that also writes on the side. So I'm just wondering, how long did it take you to sort of get this publishing deal, and how did you go about it, and what were do you have some tips for people who are looking for that kind of export?
Yes, so it took quite a long time for me, because I had a lot of friends around me who were singers, and one after the other, they started to become famous in France. I was like, why them and not me? So weird. Because I trust in rhythms of life. No, really, that's very important. Most of the time when I go to see concerts, I look at a lot of concerts in Paris. I try to explain, in a way, to singers that they have to stay connected to their joy. So many singers want to be loved. Please love me. No, you're not on stage to be loved. You're on stage to love yourself, what you are going to give, to exchange, to share. But if you ask too much to the audience to love you, the audience makes something like, ugh, he's too like, he's fishing for love, you know, like fishing for compliments. So for me, I want to also to say something, and then I come back to your question. You were talking, Clemence, about the set list. It's over important, not to do something too long, 25 songs for a showcase. No, please, 7, 8 songs, it's enough. Okay, and of course you can ask your manager or somebody what is the most efficient, because sometimes you think that's the best set list ever, but it's not. So you have to also think about your makeup, about your gesture, about the lights, about a lot of things. Being an artist is not only singing a song, it's really a 360 degrees. That's very important. And the last thing about that, and then I come to the publishing, Lady Gaga said once, I'm a big fan, she was playing in New York in a little bar and nobody was listening to her. And her voice is amazing. We all know that here. Yes, you agree with me. And so she started to take off one clothes after the other, and she finished naked playing on the piano. And then everybody shut up in the bar and started to listen to her. So she understood that she had to be unique in another way than being a great singer or a great songwriter. She needed to make people focus on her. So that's important, to find the little thing which is yours, the little pearl you have in you, the little golden jewel you have in yourself, which is unique, that people focus on you. And we are all unique in a way. So we have to find that. So being a singer and artist is also to know yourself, to work on yourself, to be happy, and to think that you have music in your life, but not only music. You have the nature, your family, your friends. You have to stay connected to the word. Not only music, I want to become famous. It's a part of your life. That's what I would want to say to the singers. And to come back to the publishing contract, a lot of singers write me on Facebook, hi, I would like you to write me a song. And of course, now it's hard for me to write songs for everybody because I have a contract. I have first to write for people who, I mean, the major companies ask my publishers songs for albums, and my publishers ask me to write songs, and we are a team. We are 10 songwriters and producers. So and now I'm quite busy with that. But before that, I started to send emails to publishers. We have a list in France, and there are maybe, I don't know, 200 or 300 publishers in France, and you can write them, you can send them your lyrics, your composals, and you can have meetings with them, and so it can work also like that. You can go to concerts. If you want to write songs for people, you go to concerts, as you said, and you have to speak with singers who are searching for lyrics, for composers. So it's, again, it's about connecting to people, being aware. It works for songwriters as for singers. It's the same. It's always about what you said, being aware and really staying connected. Not because artists are most of the time a little bit like that. You know, they'll just look at themselves. You have to share that. And again, I don't know if we can talk about luck. I think luck is just an opportunity that you recognized. Luck is nothing. I mean, I'm not sure Madonna is the most gifted singer in the world, I'm sorry, but about her voice, it's not like, it's Madonna because you give her a glass and it's going to become a jewel, something special, because that's being an artist, taking something ordinary and finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
That was great. Awesome. So far, the common theme that I'm finding, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what position of the industry you're in, is being authentic is huge. And that's really only something that an artist can do for themselves, then other people will recognize. And that's a lot of soul searching, and maybe that's a thing where they have to go back down to, down to zero and remember why they did it in the first place if they're getting frustrated. The other thing that I am hearing is the networking, the making connections. I know there's a lot of people who really get a lot of anxiety about that, and it's not their favorite thing to do. So do you have any advice for artists that are feeling that way and maybe don't have a manager on board? Or have you met an artist who is like that but has somehow overcome that?
I would say something about connecting, like networking and all this. I mean, these are words that I don't really like, and I can understand that from an artist point of view. It's like, I don't really want to network. What does that even mean? I think it's more about I mean, if you want to be an artist and you want to kind of go tour and go around the world, surely you like people in some way, because I mean it would be difficult otherwise. You're going to meet lots of people. So I guess it's not necessarily about networking in a general sense, but finding the people that you connect with. I mean, I don't know, it's a very human thing. I guess it's just people that you get along with. So there are a lot of artists that are suffering anxiety or kind of don't necessarily are not very social, but you find people along the way that are a bit like you, and you connect with these people, and then you create a network of your own. So networking doesn't necessarily mean going to meet lots of industry or things like that, but just trying to find your circle, I guess.
I think that one thing that can help with that is social media, where it's like you can do it from your house. Like, you know, follow bands you like on Twitter, interact with them like in a way that's not annoying. You know, you have to kind of know the boundaries on social media, but it's like, you know, hey, like they're like, hey, I really love this Ice Age record or whatever they're listening to, you know, comment and be like, hey, I love, this is my favorite song, and kind of start a dialogue. Or, you know, interact with your fans on Facebook or Instagram, or, you know, you see a cute dog, like comment on it, you know, like whatever. I just feel like there's ways where it's like not necessarily, like she said, like you don't need to be like schmoozy, like, oh my gosh, we invited this manager to our show. Like, you know, there's definitely ways to kind of get around it. And that also, I mean, the more you do it, the easier it's going to be, where it's like, you know, if you start, you know, a conversation with a band that's, you know, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and then they're playing in your town, like, go see them, introduce yourself. You know, there's ways where it doesn't need to be as, you know, like, I don't know, as like a Tinder date or whatever. You know, it can be very comfortable, like you, and it's just up to you in terms of how you do it.
I think I've been seeing some really nice examples of musicians that are taking the attitude of what they can kind of give to their community, and it counters a lot of examples where I've seen people trying to sort of go into situations and figure out what they can get out of it. And you see these guys that like people who are going writing with their friends, and who are offering to jump on the road and help out and do merch with these people they know, and just getting involved in this community and just like giving of themselves. And that's how they build connections that then see people go, hey, you want to come and actually play the show? And, you know, oh, you don't know much about how that works, let me tell you about it, and I'll introduce you to this manager who I think might like you. And you know, that kind of approach to any community is really effective, but I'm seeing some people get a lot out of that, just being like, even Ed Sheeran did it with this band Nisloppy early on, jumped on tour managing just to sort of be around it and be in that world, and you know, had this really hungry approach to kind of existing in a space that he knew he wanted to live in. And opportunities started coming up, but he was like existing in this community and giving himself a chance for them to come up, and giving an energy that people were feeding off, because it's like, I actually want to, you know, I want to offer and be supportive of everyone around here and not just look for something back.
I also think like delegating within your band, like there has to be someone in your band that's more social than the others, you know? So it's like, you know, this is the person that, you know, handles our social media. This is the person that goes out, or this is the person that, you know, books the tours. Like, I think, you know, knowing who has what strengths in your band, I feel like that can be really helpful. You know, one of my bands that I just saw last week, you know, they were like, this is our role, like this person does all of our Instagram takeovers, this person does, you know, they're a really good writer, they do all of our email interviews, this one likes to talk to people on the phone, this one does the phone interviews. So I think, you know, kind of delegating is really helpful, and also like knowing where people's strengths are can really help.
And also this is very important, I think, that a band does this on its own before they get a manager, before they get a booking agent, before they get a publicist and everything, you know. because you give rights away, you give work away, and if you don't have a clue what this work means, they can do it bad, So take your time as a band and try to learn the business from your band side, and then you can give some things away you don't like to do.
Yeah, I definitely think like knowing, at least having a general understanding of the way the industry works is always really important before you hire somebody. So you can say like, hey, like, these are our splits. This is how this works, or this is the way that our band goes about certain things. And I think having those kind of ground rules, especially before you take on a manager, or like having connections before you have a publicist, I think is really important. Just knowing what's going on, because I think that if you're kind of going into it not having any sort of ideas as to how things work, and then that's kind of when bands get taken advantage of, and then they say, oh, my manager did a terrible job, and really it's that you just didn't understand how the business works, and they saw that and they can take advantage of you. And I think for the most part there are good people that work in this industry, but people can often tell when people are really green, and that's when people get in trouble.
Yeah, that's one thing that I always say as well, is don't just try to work with anybody. Don't just the first like PR person that gets in touch, or the first manager that gets in touch, don't just go, oh great, I have got a manager. Just try to really think about how you connect with that person again, and maybe try to approach labels or promoters or press people who work with artists that you like and that you admire, who have that you have a connection with musically, before just like rushing into signing with anyone that will get on board.
Yeah, it's a very good point. There's a lot of people who come in and say, I need a manager or I need an agent, and I'm like, but you're not touring or doing major business things yet. And I think that's really important for people to know, is that you have to be paying these people's bills, and in order to get to that level, you have to sort of do it on your own first. So that's kind of why we try to put on these DIY series, just to help artists learn how to do that kind of thing. So I wanted to ask as well, when it comes to booking your festival, when you're looking at international acts, is there anything in particular you're looking for? Is it that you need to have a relationship with their agents or managers, or could somebody just sort of, blindly apply and have a chance at getting in?
So yeah, I also run a festival in London. I mean, with the festival that we run, it's quite a small, local. And we try to really support the local community of artists. So in terms of touring artists, it's true that we usually will book people who already have a team in place, and the smaller acts I will have on will probably be more local. So, I mean, I guess to be booked on a festival internationally, when it's really early days, might be a little difficult. Actually, I guess you want to start by, again, as we were saying before, playing in your own community, trying to get on festivals that are happening around you, and from there on, it's again something that you can show internationally. Then, when you try to get a tour abroad, or you can say, well, I played this festival with this and that artist, and that will resonate with people. And I guess, I mean, it's always worth taking the chance, but it's true that it's a bit more difficult. In the UK as well, there's no kind of funding for artists coming from abroad, or for like things like that. So I guess some other countries might be more interesting, might be focusing on a Canadian scene or something. So the UK particularly doesn't really do this kind of thing, but
Thank you. I always like when someone's honest about those things. It can be a little difficult, but it is worth trying. So I want to ask a little bit just about I guess, your perspectives on the Canadian music industry and Canadian artists. I know that you do work with Canadian artists, or you're here, so there is some sort of interest there. But is there anything in particular that is interesting about Canadian artists, something that they can offer, bring to the table? Does it have anything to do with anything that we're from Canada?
So the first thing is definitely that there's this cultural funding in Canada, which is a big advantage compared with the US artists. So I work with a lot of Canadian artists, and it's always good to know that they can half of the flights get funded and some whatever. This is a big advantage, and it helps. Yeah.
One thing that I like about Canadian artists is that they're all really nice. Like, I don't know.
Oh yes,
So-
yes. Yes.
So that's one thing.
The funding stuff's definitely huge. As a manager, it would make me, in the list of places where people could be from, it would be near the top because of that. Like US bands, it's also quite handy because they're in the biggest market and you never have to deal with the US visa process, which probably could put it to the top. It's so annoying, but yeah, the funding element with Canada's huge, and that it's not just that an artist can get access to Factor or Star Maker if they start building up. It's that the festivals, the labels, all the infrastructure within the industry also has access to funding, and they're way more resourced because of it. So you can build a Canadian career using all of that support, and then take that career that you built at home and go and be more ambitious and invest in other places in the world. And that's exactly what you see from a lot of Canadian acts. So the whole infrastructure is a big part of that, much more than just the direct artist funding. So yeah, it's, other than that, like, it doesn't really matter, but that's a huge factor.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say that there's usually a team in place, which is helpful, and radio is also, helpful for us as well. And also, Canadian bands usually tour in the U.S., which is always a good thing for, getting additional press in terms of, in addition to national press.
Yeah, proximity to the US is also pretty helpful. That's another factor. Yeah.
Yeah, besides the visa stuff.
Yeah. Although it is easier for Canadian artists, at least you don't have to give your passport to anyone. Like, I think you can get your stamp on entry, which is like a lot better because the amount of nervous handing over passport processes we've been through is a nightmare.
Yeah, we are talking about singers who are Canadian and singing in English, but I would like to talk about Canadian singers singing in French, because there are a lot of them.
Yes, sir.
And we love, in France, we love Canadian singers. We have, Céline Dion, of course, is very famous, but not only her. We have Garou, Cœur de Pirate. And when you say, I'm from Canada, I'm a singer, and you sing in French, it's really well respected, and you're like, wow, you come from Canada. And I can easily understand that Canadian artists would like to sell themselves or their music, share their music in France, and it's something not that hard to do. It's really possible. I think there is a real interest, and we are curious to discover you and know you. So, and most of the time, they are really great singers. I mean, beautiful voices, and the way because the French spoken in Canada is not really the same one as in France. It's nearly a better one. I don't know how to explain. We call that old French. Like they really, I don't know, they deliver the words in a beautiful way. So I would really encourage any Canadian singer singing in French to export himself in France. Yeah.
That's great to know.
I would love to write for a Canadian singer, for example.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
For all of you in the audience and online.
Really?
You've got a writer here. All right, thank you. That was great insight, and I hope that anyone who isn't familiar with the funding in Canada will come to one of our funding workshops that we put on, because you just heard that's a really big advantage that we have here. We're very, very, very fortunate. All right. Sorry, does anyone have the time? Because I didn't bring my phone up here. I didn't want to be distracted. I just want to make sure we're on. Okay, perfect. So I would like to kind of maybe go before we open it up for questions, because I'm sure a lot of people have things that they want to ask you about. But if each one of you could sort of give us a very brief synopsis of the current music climate in your country? I know that some countries still buy physical, and some do not. Some are strictly streaming, like here, basically. Just something like that. Maybe the top few genres or what you see that's really making a mark right now in your home country. And any other neat info that we should know about if we're thinking about perhaps exporting ourselves there. Who wants to start? It could be anyone. Danny's deep in thought.
It's all CDs.
Vinyl.
Germany just can't get into digital.
Actually, with lyrics again, we got the situation that we got a label in Europe now, and they printed vinyl, and the Canadian label didn't print vinyl. So we're now at the point where we're gonna export German vinyl to Canada, to the hometown of the band, which is weird. Yeah. So it's there are different things, and also like think about more income sources like merchandise. So also this band, they came over with I think 20 shirts, and this doesn't make sense. So think about printing the stuff in Europe, have it somewhere there, and then have enough stuff to sell, you know, and don't be sold out after 2 days. So
right, and in Germany, there's like merch packages with music. That's like a sort of a selling point, isn't that? Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, I thought that there was like people would purchase like these packages with like lots of music and merch and all of those things.
Yeah. They still buy on the merch table, yeah, for sure.
They still like to buy a lot of things from bands, and including the physical music.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Are CDs a thing there?
Some people buy it.
Some people do.
But so vinyl is really increasing, so
right.
It's a more beautiful item to buy.
Great. And genres. What are the genres that you really see sort of taking storm?
I just work with genres that don't have that much success in the moment. So in Germany, it's a German hip hop. It's a big thing. So it's a problem for us because I just work with a Canadian hip hop band and with some international rock bands. So for sure, there's no real market for traditional Canadian folk music. There's no market for throat singers and stuff. This is like I talked on one-on-one sessions with people where I thought, okay, yeah, it's right that you're in Canada because there are people who dig your music. I don't know them. There's no market, you know. And also, like, I often talk to those country guys here, and I know there's country music in Germany, but it's like very, very cheesy, or it's some kind of alternative country. And I know that people here have very, very good country stars, but there's no real market for this, you know.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Like, if it's like contemporary singer-songwriters who are alt country or whatever, like, there's a decent audience in Germany for that. Like, as in, we sell quite a lot of tickets for this kind of music.
Yeah, but we have a lot of them also from Germany.
Yeah. But, well, like, put it this way, we've got active German careers with that kind of music. Yeah. Like, maybe not like commercial radio options, but certainly ticket selling acts.
Sure.
And festivals and stuff. So, you know, I think it's certainly a market that we're looking at as being an important touring market with you know, so for the weather station from Canada, who I guess is effectively a folk something alternative act, you know, Germany's definitely an important touring market for her. So, yeah.
So I also work with John K. Sampson from Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. And for him, I think, yes, Germany is the biggest market in Europe.
Right. Yeah.
I think Aidan Knight as well, who's like a Canadian. I was just talking to his manager. He's saying Germany's his biggest market. As a sort of just Canadian singer.
It's a great country to tour as an artist.
Mm.
Yes.
I don't want to be proud of it, but it's big because you got many big cities and. They treat the people very well, usually, compared to other countries, islands.
Yeah, I have heard that the venues treat their artists pretty well when they tour there and provide meals and pay them and
Hotels and meals.
yeah.
I reckon it goes like Netherlands, Belgium a little worse, Germany a little bit down, France I don't know, might be almost below Germany, and then UK you just like sky the rock bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, France.
Well, you should.
The food is better. The food is better in France, definitely. Yes.
Alastair, do you have anything on like about the Australia music scene? Sort of what's like hitting hard there, and any advice for people trying to get there?
It's got a market for most major genres, so it's not. Yeah, like most people are kind of going to be in the mix if they're. Well, I guess genres that are featured where you're seeing people have kind of like commercially viable careers out in the world, they'll probably have a market in Australia. You know, like so. Yeah, if you're seeing people pull it off in other parts of the world doing what they're doing, you know, they could probably take that to Australia as well, because it's not like one of these ones where suddenly a band comes into Australia and everyone's only listening to hip hop or only listening to rock music. It's kind of got established touring circuits for like great ones for heavy bands. You know, there's great metal circuits, and then there's like some great folk scenes, and you know, like there's strong kind of like EDM festivals, and yeah, I don't know. Obviously, you name the genre, and I'd maybe be like, oh yeah, I'm not sure, but I guess, you know, like there's I suppose there's this, you know, you can kind of see what genres of music out in the world have got touring circuits and have established artists doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like.
Maybe we'll move away from the genre question for now, because I think that's a hard one to answer, maybe. But is there anything, like, just for an artist who's, like, you know, thinking about touring Australia or getting on to some big festivals, or is there any sort of piece of advice, or, like, for instance, you know, are the major music markets good, or should they focus more on the smaller towns to start with?
Yeah, you definitely just want to enter into it ideally with some. There'd be a few like key ways to sort of enter into Australia, and it would be either with a run of festivals, a strong support tour, or you've got sort of existing probably radio play and media coverage around either like a key single or a record, and you've got this built up audience to be able to go in and do headline stuff. So those are probably your three ways, and then a fourth, I've seen a lot of Canadian acts do this and head over and just build the community there as if they were back at home. And that's another option I really like, where there's a guy, Scott Cook, who's from Edmonton, I think. And he just kept turning up. I helped him a little bit early on, kept just sort of like getting to know different people in the community, getting to know festival bookers, and built it from the ground up. So that's a really nice kind of fourth way of none of that, like radio, no festival wants to book you. It's like, I really love it when artists are kind of resourceful and just take that more kind of like, hey, I did it at home, I'm going to do it there as well. And that's definitely an option as well if people are willing to spend time on the ground. Yeah, and there's, you know, and he said he's got a nice little Australian touring circuit and career going there now. So
yeah, just move to Australia for a little bit.
Well,
why not?
he's probably done like, I don't know, maybe even less than 2 months a year, maybe. Like, yeah, just a lot of time on the email, just reconnecting with people, but just maybe a couple of trips a year has been enough for him to kind of build that. Cool. So it's been a good example of how that can happen, and I've seen a few like that from Canada where they've got a good grounding there. Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any advice, Clemence?
So. What was the question? What was the
just something about your market? Like, what would be some advice that you'd offer if an artist came to you and said, you know, I'm thinking about touring the UK, or I want to play a festival in the UK, or I think that's my market? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, similarly to Australia, I guess the UK is open to pretty much any genre. Yes. So, I mean, that's been said. The UK financially is often difficult. although some people try to make the artist on tour life better, but it's I mean, I don't have a specific advice about the UK. I don't think in terms of two interesting music directions that are doing really well there at the moment. I guess there's the neoclassical scene, which is doing really well with people like Niels Fram, Olafur Arnold. And there's a new jazz scene, how do you say it, being born in London at the moment, which is really interesting as well. I don't know if there's a specific advice. Just come and play. I don't know.
It's a little. It can be a little bit expensive because there are visas, right, as well.
Yeah. So I mean, but circling back to what we were saying about the funding that you can get in Canada, a lot of the artists that come over do get it. I think you need to be able to justify that you have a certain amount of dates booked abroad, and then once you can show that, then you can get some sort of touring support. I mean, it seems to me that the support that Canadian artists receive is mainly orientated on export, actually. So I don't really know how it works, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was basically going to say the same thing, and I feel like with the U.S., there's so many markets that you can play. And actually, some of the bands that I work with are doing well in some of the smaller and secondary markets. So I feel like that is definitely a good option, and I don't necessarily suggest skipping some of the markets where you're like, oh, this could be, a drive day to, Seattle or whatever. Just because, those towns, they don't necessarily always have bands come through, and so people get really excited when those bands come through. I had a band 2 weeks ago that played in Billings, Montana. It was a 200 cap room, and they played to 59 people, but they sold almost $1,000 in merch in addition to their guarantee. So, even though it wasn't, great turnout, they made it up in merch. And because all those people were so excited that they were there, and those people wanted to be there, and they said it was a great show, even though it was, a low turnout, because they were really actual fans of the band. And I think also having cool merch, at shows, or having something that maybe it's a tour only exclusive, and people want to buy it. And it's also really interesting to me, kind of knowing your audience. Wire is one of the older bands that I work with, and they're in their late 60s, and they said all their fans still buy CDs, where it's maybe that's an older mentality. So kind of maybe see your first tour and have CDs and vinyl and kind of see what works. But they definitely say they sell more CDs than vinyl, which is really interesting to me. They do deluxe edition CDs. They don't do it on vinyl, which to me, that coming from my mindset, that's a little bit weird, but if that's what their fans want, then, invest in that. It's great because it's cheaper. If your audience skews a little bit more millennial, maybe do tapes, and I've had bands that do T-shirts with a download code. So you're also getting, if people don't want to buy a physical product, but they want that T-shirt, and it's, $15 for the T-shirt, and it's, $20 for a T-shirt with a download code, where they're getting the music and they're also, getting a T-shirt because they want to take something, I was at this show. Getting creative, where it's another band I work with, they have weird socks that they make, or I don't know, they're actually really cool, but it seems really weird. Or if another band was touring through really cold markets and they had beanies, so kind of knowing where you are and knowing what people are going to want, or making it seem super special, where it's exclusive to the tour. I think that's always really helpful. And in terms of music, I do a lot of guitar rock, dark, heavy stuff. So that's definitely still a thing. I don't know, definitely in LA, there's a lot of rock bands. There's a lot of goth leaning things, which is a really interesting scene, but that's definitely really prominent in LA. I don't know, I guess rock bands, it's, it's everything.
Cool. All right, Mark, do you have any advice for artists who want to come to France? I know you were saying that Canadian singers who sing in French are very loved, but any other advice you could give on the market there?
I would say first, like Clemence said, come and play, because you have to share your music. And there are two ways of thinking. The first one is to say, okay, in France nowadays, for example, the music which is the most played on radios is urban music. Urban, hip hop, rap. It's like really, it has eaten all the other genre of music. But it's a fact. But you can think, okay, it's like that. So if I'm not doing hip hop music, I don't go to France. Bad way of thinking. You can say to yourself, okay, they do that, but I can bring my talent, my music. Maybe it can be a traditional Canadian music. Why not? Once, like 20 years ago, there was a band which did a song from Britain. In France, it's a region from France. C'était, I tell you in French, Dana, c'était le truc de Dana, tu te rappelles? It was a big hit, a big hit. And they started then to do music from Brittany, which is really strange with cornemuse. How do you say cornemuse in English? Strange, okay, beautiful but strange instrument, like accordion, but okay, with sound and you know, it's Scottish,
like a bagpipe.
Yeah, and maybe basically you can think, oh, playing that and being played on radio, it will never happen. It can happen if you trust in your project. If you are really centered, focused on what you do, you can come to France and you can say to people, okay, I can play that. You do concerts. Okay, to reach festivals, it's another thing. I agree with what you said. It's really, there is a process, but it's also possible. Everything's possible. But we can be big dreamers, but also to know how it works. So, but nowadays, really, urban music is like, if you do hip hop, like come really very fast. And if you're from Canada, you can sing in French, but also in English, because the French market allows Canadian people to sing in English, but they don't allow French singers to sing in English. If, for example, if in my project I was singing in English, they would say, why? Because? No, it's not enough, because you must have English roots, American roots, or, I mean, you agree with me, you know?
Actually, in France, we have quotas on the radio as well for French music, for music sung in French. So if you sing in French, yeah, you have chances to be played on the radio.
If it's your goal, there are singers that are not playing on radios, and it's not a problem for them. So it depends. There is the market, and there are markets into the market. So whatever music you do, come.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open up the floor for questions that you might have for our panelists. So feel free to throw your hand up if you've got something. All right. Okay, technical difficulties. Thanks for bearing with me.
Thank you so much. Hi. I was just wondering, what are the advantages and disadvantages of working with an artist that sounds unique and isn't easily classified but has a particular sound versus somebody that is easily classified in, like, you know, as urban or pop or something that's more current and easy to place? Like, what would you prefer? Who would you prefer working with, and why? And what are some kind of hard things to get by in each situation?
I think I really like working with artists that I don't know how to fit in a genre. Actually, it's quite rare, I guess, but it's really interesting. It's really interesting when you try to describe music to someone and you're like, well, don't really know how to describe it. It's like a bit of this, a bit of that. So, yeah, I think it's. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to limit oneself to genre, or just do what you feel. I think.
Yeah, I also think it's more interesting to work with an artist who is has a wider range of style, but. It's a bit like, sometimes like a one-way street. You know, if you targeting a scene. There is a scene sometimes. So if you're a death metal band singing about whatever, the devil, there is a scene in Berlin for sure that will show, that will come to your show, you know? Then you have your audience, like 100 people will come. Wow, it's great in the beginning, but there's a limit, you know? So I always think it's better to have a open-minded kind of style.
I was going to say, I think from a press perspective, I think it's interesting as long as it's what you're doing, it's good. You know, because there's weird for the sake of being weird, and sometimes that's not the easiest sell for anything. But I think if there's a story, if there's something, you know, unique and a way that we can kind of frame it so that it stands out, I think that that's super helpful, just because there's so many bands out there that are fighting for the same press coverage. So if you're doing something a little bit different, but it, you know, it sticks with people and it resonates, I think that that's great.
I think also within what you do, the whole project needs to make sense. I mean, you don't really want to go yourself in every direction and trying, like, you know, and having one one hip hop song and then one death metal singing about the devil or whatever. Or maybe it is your thing, but you know, it has to be your thing then. But you don't want to just try to tap into everything. Yeah, I think as a whole, as an artist, people need to kind of see what you're about and your authenticity, and then within that, you can do pretty much what you want, I think.
Yeah, I think in the immediate, it's sometimes a bit easier when people have easy points of comparison when it comes to festivals and all the initial conversations. If you can just go, it's very much like this and it's fantastic, then it's quite straightforward at the beginning as a manager or as an agent. But in the long run, like being individual and having a voice and a sound that no one else matches up with is going to be a much better result. And if the songs are really, really quality, coupled with an individual sound, then that's the gold.
Yeah, I was just going to say also, like, if that's what you're doing, like, kind of stick with that. And it also, if you start to become successful in doing that, you know, don't like, hey, this is one record that, you know, it sounds like, you know, weird folk alt rock or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to be a rapper now, and you expect for the same people to kind of cover you on the press side of things. Like, I think you're just kind of gonna scare people off. I feel like that it needs to have like some there needs to be rhyme, like a way that you actually have it make sense. I don't think it just should be like, you know, this is the weird music I make in my bedroom and I just want to put it out in the world. You know, there needs to be a process behind it, and I think that people can take to it.
Yeah, definitely. So if you have success with something you're doing, you should think about staying in this role. Like, you know, if you're Bad Religion, you don't have to play jazz, you know?
Yeah, like I have an artist right now that she's a beautiful singer, and she just decided she was going to make an instrumental record, and you know, all the feedback that we got was, we miss her voice. And you know, it's really tricky to get people when you've had 8 records as this wonderful songwriter, and then all of a sudden you take out the vocals and there's a story behind it, and it's really interesting, and you know, diehard fans are getting it. But across the board, it's definitely a challenge on the press side when it's like, you know, for the past 10 years you've been doing one thing and you've taken apart what everyone loves. So I think, you know, kind of knowing that if that's what you're going for, that's great, but don't expect the same response, you know, or going into it just feeling like, you know, the press doesn't care anymore, because, you know, they do. They're just saying, hey, like, you know, on your next record that you sing on, we'll write about it. Hopefully.
I think that this is where it's really important to understand the industry, because if you're trying to push the boundaries and go in a different direction, I think that's a really good thing, and most of the really great artists have done that. You just need to understand the industry enough to know that it's going to be a little bit tough potentially, and just to be like, okay, like, I know what I'm doing here, I'm backing myself, I think this is amazing. I know that I'm going to have some of my team being like, this is stupid, but if you really believe in it, then I think that's where it's actually can be like the most important moments in your career to kind of follow an instinct and go in a different direction, and kind of go, I know you guys don't see it now, but this is going to be great.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, if you are successful at something and you know, you were saying maybe to carry on in that same direction, but if it doesn't feel authentic to you anymore, then also you shouldn't force yourself into sticking to that. I mean, yeah, as long as you're true with what you're doing, you believe in it, then there's no reason for people to go, oh, this is. I think you can have that freedom of reinventing. Just don't try to force something or, okay, decide I'm going to be doing this now. Just do it if you feel like it's the right way to express, I guess. Right.
But there's such a tough reality with that, though, where bands have followed that instinct and gone, I think everyone's going to go with this. And then they find out they don't. But maybe 20 years later, it's like that's one of their great records. Exactly. And I think for me, those kind of artists, it like kills you in the moment. You're like, like we're just finally getting somewhere, and now you're going over there. But that's actually the kind of artist that I kind of want to work with, because it's like it's brave, interesting, challenging, and it is when you look at your Bowies and stuff, like it's like some of those moves for the team around him would have been like, what is he doing now? You know, yeah, but it goes down well in history in the long run, which is kind of what everyone wants. I think is like a legacy of being a truly great artist.
Yeah. Again, the being authentic thing is huge. I feel like we always keep coming back to that, as just being yourself as an artist and doing what you need to do. We have another question here, so I'm going to take this one.
Hi, thanks. I have actually a couple, but I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a couple. Should I just say? Okay. Well, one is in the same direction as what we were just talking about. I'm a singer and a songwriter, and my music crosses the line between jazz and folk, but it's not really fully in either camp. And so I feel like I could do a folk tour and I could do a jazz tour, but responses to that. just what is your advice, or what would you recommend, or what do you think, or...
I don't think there's such a thing as a jazz tour or a folk tour. I think I guess it circles back to a few things that we've been saying, is that it's your means of expression, so you just do your tour. So I guess, I mean, if you wanted to play traditional jazz venues, or if that's what you're thinking, then maybe you can't go down that route, which I guess is like a genre that's very specific and has its own circle of venues. But then outside of that, I mean, I don't see why you couldn't, just build a tour with that.
I've got an artist, Marlon Williams, who is all over the shop. Like, he's a bluegrass band for 3 songs, and then an indie rock band, and then doing soul stuff, and it's made it a little bit more challenging to sit in a spot where people can quite make sense of him. But it's ultimately his strength, and what brings it together is his personality, like his presence and his voice, because his voice is incredible in doing any of these different types of music. And so we kind of we market him, and people come to see him. And then for me, he always taught me different types of music. And so the experience, I was like, doesn't really matter what this guy does. He'll like teach me to learn to love bluegrass, but I'm coming for him. And so, I think it can be overthought sometimes, like you need people to be coming out and connecting with you as an artist, and then you can take them on a journey into different genres, or do things where they're not even thinking about that. They're not going, I just listen to a jazz song. They're just like captivated by what you're doing.
Okay, yeah, I do find that seems to be the struggle, is that trying to figure out how to get them to come and listen, because they don't know what they're coming for, and people like to have a very clear picture of, you know, if I'm showing up, what am I going to get, right? So when you say you market him, how do you mean that?
Can we actually? I'm going to move. We're running out of time, so afterwards we can talk. You two can
I'll
maybe
talk to you
together.
about that afterwards.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we ask stuff that's relevant to the whole group. Marisol, I'm going to pass this because it's working again.
I feel like this segues with what you were talking about, and then also like with that first initial inquiry I had about like what is a major genre, and like I only asked that question because like for instance, being from Australia, one of my bands that I really kept an eye on is Hiatus Coyote, and so like literally being like an anomaly of an Australian market, latching on and staying true to like their jazz chops, but like not pumping a great singer. So like maybe what I'm asking right now is somewhere like Canada where country is huge, and then learning now like Berlin, like, they're all about hip hop. France, this urban genre has taken over. How do you find that? Maybe like I don't know how familiar you are with Hiatus Coyote, but like being from Australia, like how do you cultivate this kind of like diehard fan base of a genre that's literally so other? Because I find myself as that other artist. So,
like, I think with them as an example, it does tie in where people are buying into them as a band and her as a singer, and I think they're just kind of taking you on a journey. But I guess what I was saying about Australia, and I think it's true of all these countries, there's pockets of fan bases for all of these different types of music, I think in all of the major markets. And so there is an audience there, and if you are sort of combining genres and connecting as an artist, then I think, you know, there will be an audience there. And they stood out because they weren't kind of sitting in a certain box, because they were just they presented as a great band. Their songs sounded amazing. They were sort of kind of remarkable, and so people from lots of different people who like jazz go to watch them. People who like folk go to watch them. And they've just stood out enough that they've kind of brought together all these different audiences who are now just Hiatus Coyote fans, you know, and that's possible to do, I think, in all of these markets. I don't know if that's helpful.
right. I know that sounded like a very basic question, but like just even hearing it from like the way that you synthesize it as someone who manages, and it's like having that articulated that many genres, lovers, like different lovers of other genres came for this band. So it helped to hear that reiterated.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I think we're going to do one more question. We might have time for one more.
Okay, this is kind of a quick practical question. So you guys are all from different countries. I'm curious which ones you need visas for, and also which ones have kind of like a good DIY scene that you can potentially book yourself if you don't have an agent at this point.
For the UK, you don't need a visa. You just need a certificate of sponsorship that there's someone who's a sponsor can do for you. It's very simple. It's a very simple process. We're sponsors, for example. We do it for a lot of artists. So yeah, the UK in that sense is very easy. There's a strong DIY scene for sure. There's loads of artists who book their own tours. There's a really good scene of venues across the country which have in-house bookers who need shows every night of the week, so who are ready to kind of book directly, and if they like an artist, they can go for it. So, yeah.
So in Germany, you won't need a visa, and there's also a big DIY scene, and also this living rooms, concert scene stuff. So you can set up small shows if you want. Yes. But this is another advice. So if you come to Europe, check this visa stuff. I'm not sure about Eastern Europe, those countries. Sometimes you keep it in mind that this could be tricky somewhere.
I'm pretty sure that throughout Europe, it's like, I'm trying to think, because we've actually run into any issues. I don't think we've needed one anywhere, even over to like Poland and Latvia, and yeah, there's not been Russia. We did. That was going to be tricky. We actually pulled out of the gig, but yeah, most of those Eastern Europe ones I think were okay. And so yeah, it's really the US that stood out in a big way, and then Australia and stuff have a process, but none of them are really that complicated if you just like do plan for it and sort it out, you'll be able to do it and get it. US is the only one where you might actually run into problems actually getting access.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's tons of DIY scenes in the U.S. I mean, I can speak from L.A., New York, and Philly, D.C., all cities that I've lived in. I mean, I personally love what's going on in L.A. right now. I feel like there's so many amazing bands that are coming out, and just the support is really incredible, and it's something that really I haven't experienced since I was in college. I went to school in DC, and it definitely reminds me of like that very much like punk rock ethos, you know, Discord kind of vibe. And I just feel like everyone there is so supportive. And we were talking about this last night, and I personally feel like LA is very welcoming, and I feel like people are you know, open to throwing, you know, bands from out of town on shows or anything like that. All the venues in LA do a free residency every Monday night. So it's, you know, it's local bands. Sometimes it's touring bands that, you know, are friends with the band that's coming through. So you can see, there's like the chance to see live music it's crazy, you know, just because there's like 8 venues where every Monday night, and then there's one that branched out into a Tuesday. So it's like you can see so much music, and you can see the bands that are coming up, which I think is really helpful. And I really think that has helped like us develop a community.
No, I think in France it's like in the UK. It's quite easy to come and to sing as a singer from abroad. They need a visa. Clemence, maybe you know better than me. I don't think so, because there's so many singers coming from all around the world. It's very easy.
The venues in France have to apply for like a permit type thing, but it's really easy.
But really, it's not complicated. It's not like in the US. No, it's easy.
Yeah. Okay, so we have run out of time. But for anyone who has any further questions, our panelists are going to be kicking around the chip bowls at the end. Also tonight we do have the Manitoba Music Showcase, which Marisol here and Warming and Shay, I think he might have had to duck out. But they're all going to be showcasing. So anyone who's, you know, on the streaming or watching us live right now from Facebook, you still have an option to come out tonight. Again, they've talked about making those connections. They're here from all over the world. If you want to come buy them a drink, I'd recommend that. See who you vibe with, see who you connect with. That's why we like to bring these people out, is just so you actually have the opportunity to meet them face to face. So that is happening tonight. The show starts, doors are at 7 p.m. The show starts at 8 p.m. and that's at the Handsome Daughter. And before I sign off as well, just a reminder, I have these little bookmarks here, and it lists all of our workshops coming up this season. We put on a lot of these DIY workshops, and we also have a hip hop professional development workshop. We've got Manitoba Manitoba music country no, I can't think of it. It's a country music meeting something. There's too many words, and it's been a long day. But yeah, so we have some genre-based workshops. We have Equalizer, which is an audio production workshop for women and non-binary people. So there's a lot of things coming up. Please check out our website. Keep up to date on these workshops, because they are going to help you build your career. Before I officially sign off, I just want to give a huge hand to our lovely speakers here. They've come a long way to be here for you. And they still have a long way to go. They're going to be heading to Kelowna tomorrow. So, and thank you all for coming on a Tuesday afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.